morning. It's nice to see some familiar faces, so welcome back. So just real quickly, just a little bit about me. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I'm also a master certified addiction professional and a certified intervention professional as well, too. The practice family recovery specialist, a little bit about what we do is we specialize in working with people that have substance use disorders, teenagers, as well as adults, and of course teens and adults are kept separately. And we also do interventions with families and folks that have a loved one that they believe needs or can benefit from some type of help and they're unwilling. We really work as a family together to be able to reach out to the family. So that's the experience that I bring to you all, and my best teachers are actually the teenagers and the adults we work with, because they are out there in the world and they're facing all of these things. So while we pull in the science and the techniques, they really are very teaching into how they cope, they manage, and especially in what's going on locally in our own community, because we know what's going on around the world, which is important to know, but we want to know very much about what's going on here at home. So I'm very grateful again and honored to be here with you all. So I'm going to start just with a quick recap of some of the things that were covered in the other sessions insofar as development, because I think it's very important that we understand the functioning of the brain in the teenage years to then add the information of the technology to how the brain is developing. So, excuse me, the brain between the ages of about 13, 14, up until about the age of 25, there's pretty much a huge growth spurt that goes on in the brain at this time. And it's important to know what this looks like. By the time a child is about 12 or 13 years old, their limbic system, which is the reward system of the brain, is fully developed. So when they do something that they like, when they do something that they're enjoying, the brain immediately lights up and says, oh my God, this is great, I love this, I gotta keep doing this feels really good. And then in the development piece, the brain then develops from back to front. And the last thing that develops is the executive function. That's the ability for any of us to be able to hit the brakes when we get a bad idea. So to run the comparison to a vehicle, the vehicle, by the time it's 13 years old, has the gas pedal that will go pedal to the metal the whole way. And then the brakes fully don't come in up until about the age of 25. So there's instances where they can be, a car out of control, very impulsive, not think about the consequences, just, act. They go with the feel-goods. And I remember growing up a number of times, my mom probably remembers more, and my parents remember more, that they would say, what's wrong with you? Didn't you think? I didn't know how to answer that at the time. Now as an adult, I can be like, clearly I didn't, but I wasn't wired to. And that's where the gift of consequence comes in as a parent, is that is very teaching, that there are natural consequences for the decisions that teenagers make, and that helps to make the connect from the impulsivity to the executive function, even though it's not fully developed. And another important component, I was talking to Leslie earlier today, is that, that when you talk to your kids and you express the home rules and the rules that resonate with your family values, morals, and ethics, that when the consequence is stated, if this, then that, it's very important that your kids believe that there's going to be follow-through. Because if not, it falls into threatening, and then they're going to test the waters and see that, oh, mom and dad just said this, but really it's not there. And it can create a broken trust within the family, and it can also contribute to more acting out. Does that make sense? Yep, perfect. So the neurotransmitters in the brain, again, that are very important to the feel-good, it's both the dopamine and the serotonin, and those are the part of the limbic system and part of the reward system. So it's very important to remember how these play in here as well. So as a quick recap to adolescent development, these same years, there's 4 unconscious goals that a teenager is striving to achieve. And you as parents definitely see how they act these out. One of the things they're striving for is autonomy, which is a very positive thing to have. It's earning that ability to self-govern. So it's important for them to do that because that's part of the growing up process. And in that autonomy also comes the ability to self-regulate and self-impose rules. As parents, the school system, pretty much everywhere they go, there's rules that are established, and it's also teaching that we do need to live with some sort of structure in our life. And one day it's going to fall upon us to set up our own structure. Just like you all are here this morning, I would imagine some of you have been places before here, maybe dropping off your kids, but you knew you wanted to be here and you knew what time you had to get up. And you knew that if you went to sleep at 3 in the morning or went to bed at 11 o'clock at night, is kind of pre-planning for that to know that you get enough sleep. Kids, a lot of times, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure summertime is one of those times, that kids will be up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, not thinking about the next morning or not caring enough, oh, I'll worry about tomorrow morning. It's the self-regulation piece and the striving for autonomy will hopefully teach them that the one that's tired the next morning and falling asleep and not feeling good and what have you is them, and it's a consequence of very little sleep. Then we have the process of individuation, their development of their own personality and themselves as an individual. Realizing that they are more than what mom and dad have instilled in them. Because up until a certain point, mom and dad, whatever mom and dad said was what was done and how they thought and how they felt. And then they start to realize I'm an individual person. And the high school years are it's amazing to watch how those 4 years move through because you'll see almost different types of personalities and different types of things being tried on. And they're trying these things on to see what's going to fit best. They'll go from, the emo to the goth to the punk rocker to, they'll just switch. Religion is something else that kids tend to, I'm going to say question. One day they get up and they're like, you know what, that God person you talked about, I don't believe in God anymore. And we're like, what? You've grown up in this all your life. I'm not going to temple anymore. I'm not going to church anymore. And it's part of that individuation process and exploring. Good news is at the end of the day, and it usually takes years, kids end up adopting about 95% of the values, morals, and ethics of the family. So they come back at some point, which is a very good thing. They need to learn that they have to cooperate in order to survive. They do not live in a vacuum. The teen years tend to be very self-centered. Right? They walk into a room, automatically they think everybody's looking at them. When maybe you're just looking at the door to see who walked in because you're expecting somebody. And that being able to think about other people and how this will affect other people, and I got to do my part. This is one of the reasons I think chores at home are important. Even if there's someone to do it or somebody else does it, it gives that sense of responsibility that you're taking out the trash. And it's everybody's trash, but we live in a family, so we take out everybody's things together while somebody else may clean the bathroom or do the groceries, right? And teaching that cooperation. And then the last one is separate, and that doesn't mean abandon people. It means to launch and to do your thing when you're ready to do your thing. And the way things are going in the recent past, and I heard there was a physician who's also an interventionist that I learned this from by the name of Dr. Judith Landau, who talks about how the lifespan has been extended by about 10 years in the last X amount of years because medical research and what have you. She doesn't add those 10 years to the end of life, interestingly enough. She adds them in the years between 20 and 30 because it's taking longer for the kids to launch. They're staying home longer. Lucky you, but if by the time they're 40, they might move out. Just kidding, 35. But it makes sense that it's coming into those years, that you're seeing that's really, we have kids staying home longer, coming home after college, even though they've completed college, because of the way just it's hard to find a job. And that just makes a lot of sense. So with this as the basis, I'm going to run into now the social media piece. And as I was doing research for this, and it's on another slide somewhere, of how long cell phones have now been around. And approximately everybody that's 20 and younger, they're natives to technology. Once they were born and there was already cell phones, computer, internet, right? We're immigrants into this, because I know growing up, for me, it was very different. And I'm actually grateful that I didn't have a smartphone or a tablet or a computer, because I think I would have been way too distracted from what I needed to do. It was hard enough to sit down, get my parents to get me to sit down to do my math homework, because math and I don't get along. I can only imagine if I would have had that as a distraction, it just, I think, would have made it worse. So this group of kids right now, they're used to living in a world of immediate gratification. You have an iPhone or a smartphone, and it has Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, messaging, texting, internet, games, everything right there at the fingertips. And they've become very accustomed to delayed gratification. You look at substance use. Substance use is something else that's very much immediate gratification. So we put them in situations where there's delayed gratification. They really have to learn to wait. Wonderful example of that is school. To get a high school diploma, it's 4 years. College, 4 years. They're looking for things fast. I want it, and I want it now. So that's a component. Again, remember, the brain for teenagers is wired already for the reward system is fully developed. The ability to hit the brakes, the executive function is the last thing to develop, because we go from back to front, and then very powerful with just the technology and a smartphone alone, and all of these apps. Now, this is what I grew up with. Do you remember the boom boxes, the computer, the VHS beta player, the Walkman with the cassette players? When I saw that brought me back to a memory of a flight that I took, and I remember I had my cassettes. It was about 12 cassettes with the Walkman and the headsets, and it was like, that took up a bunch of space in my carry-on bag, but I had to have my music. And now, it's like you have something this size, and I have 3 million songs if I choose to write on this. And back in the day, it was like that. So some numbers that I put together on the social media and on smartphones here. Over 70% of teens have smartphones. After this terrible incident at the Parkland school, I heard this from some friends of mine. They gave their 10-year-old a cell phone because of that. They wanted to be sure that because they wanted to wait until he was older. And it really impacted me, because I saw the importance of being in contact with your children. I mean, these days, unfortunately, I think it's paramount with everything that's going on. So I just talked to a few people, and after that incident, just down here in Dade County, a lot more kids got phones for that same reason. And here, in this case, the friends of mine that I'm talking about, my godson, he's 10. So mom and dad immediately came in, right, and put limits and apps to watch and see. But it's a tough space to be. Most teens are on their phones all the time. Remember, they're not able to self-regulate themselves. They're in school, in bed at night, when they go to the bathroom, when you're trying to talk to them, and while they're trying to do their homework. I speak at schools frequently, and there's times that I spend the whole day at school, so needless to say, I'll go into the restroom numerous times a day, and it's amazing how many of the young ladies are in there texting on their phone in between the classes, and it's that constant use. They're in instant access all the time, so they're constantly getting interrupted. this puts a lot of pressure on these kids because they're socializing 24 hours a day. You know, while we were growing up, we'd go to school to learn and to socialize, and not necessarily in that priority of order. Some people go to school to socialize and then to learn. But by the time we got home, we were able to disconnect from that and be a kid and maybe play or be silly or just detach. Here, if there's no limits on this, they're socializing 24/7. It's constant that they're in front of this. And then we have the popularity contest of childhood. How many likes people get. It's amazing how people are affected by the number of likes that they get or they don't get. And then they'll start to read into the why they got the likes or why they didn't. We're also, my belief is that we're neurobiologically wired to have relationships. We're meant to be connected to other people. While there's times that probably most of us, and I know I've said, I'm gonna pack up my stuff and I'm going to a deserted island and I'm never coming back. But after I think maybe 2 or 3 days, I'd be like, okay, I need people again. That's where the power and the value in life comes in, is in that connection. And we have these powerful social media, Facebook, Instagram, and what have you, where the kids are constantly on and monitoring that. And they're gonna add reasons themselves, right or wrong, as to why they're not getting likes. Because we're meaning-making machines. We need to have answers. And if we don't have the answer, we're gonna create one. And I've worked with a number of families, and they've gotten to ask it's a one-word sentence, but it's a tough one. And the question is, why? Why me? Why my family? Why my son? Why my daughter? And yes, we want the answer. But sometimes we don't get an answer for why. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes relationships break up. It happens, and we don't know the why. And if we get stuck on focusing on the why, we don't move from where we are. So it's about being able to accept that we may not know why it is what it is, and how do we move forward. Something else I have found in working with teenagers and young adults, which is part of their development and part of how I believe social media plays in, is that there's two types of adolescents, and there's bouncing back and forth. There's your adolescent who is looking to fit in. People that are looking to fit in will usually morph and take on characteristics of other people so that I'm accepted because I'm like you. Part of what we want to help them work through is feeling like they belong, which is very different. This is who I am, once they figure out who they are. And holding true to who they are and then belong because of who they are versus who I'm pretending to be, so that they can be authentic to what their values, morals, ethics are. Does that make sense? So all of this is kind of playing around in a very vulnerable time when they're trying to figure out who they are. 92% of teens go online daily, and 24% say they're online almost constantly. And this was a survey that was done with teenagers. The poll was for about 1,000 students throughout the U.S. 76% of teens use social media. 81% of them is the older teens, and 68% of teens between 13 and 14. The older teens is 14 to 18. So it cut it off at 18 years old. 71% use Facebook, 52% use Instagram, 41% use Snapchat, and 33% use Twitter. Instagram now just recently added private messaging. They didn't have private messaging before. So now they've added private messaging, and from what I read, they don't store the messages, so as parents, when you go in to check the phone, those messages disappear. So some of these app developers while they're naturally trying to increase their revenue and their business, may not have our kids' best interest at heart, because it facilitates a process of, some people will say privacy, some will say secrets. There's a big distinction between privacy and secrets. Something that is private will not affect somebody else if they know about it. Let me see if I can give an example. Something that's private for me might be that I'm not a morning person, and really to be here this early is really tough for me, right? That doesn't affect you in either way. Now, if a child is having sex, using substances, and they don't tell you, and they're, a teenager, or they're being bullied, or, any of these other components, that's a secret because it affects the person that doesn't know. That's something that you want to know. That's something that's important for you to know. And by keeping that, that's a secret. So we have a big distinction of one from the other. 77% of parents say their teens get distracted by their devices and don't pay attention when they're together. You've all have seen the pictures and walked into restaurants and have seen it, right? Families sitting at the dinner table, and maybe everybody at the table is on their smartphone. You've got, a little kid watching a video maybe, mom and dad texting, the teenagers texting. So they're not really fully present. As much as we think we're good multitaskers, we're not. We're not. Doing more than one thing at a time, there's distraction along the way, and things are not getting done completely. 59% of parents say they feel their teen is addicted to their mobile device, and 50% of teens say that they're addicted to it. So there is a recognition that people are constantly going to these phones. And it's interesting because the numbers will vary. It says like an adult will check their smartphone 150 times a day. So I sit there and I try and think, I'm like, do I check it that many times? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm guilty of that. Especially when I'm on the road, see, because I have, wonderful technology. Apple computer, iPhone, so everything's connected. So if I'm at work, at my desk, I'm like, I don't have to check my phone, but really, who am I lying to here? It's coming here. If I didn't have this and I was on the road, I'd be checking the phone. So I think that's very accurate in how often we do this, which also puts us, just like it puts the kids to socialize 24 hours a day, we're working 24 hours a day. We're not able to disconnect. Or I'll speak for myself. I'm not able to disconnect. And I try really hard, because at night, once I go to sleep or get ready to go to sleep, I turn the sound off on the phone. But if I wake up during the course of the night, the thought crosses my mind, and I have to be very cognizant of, I'm not going to look at my phone at 3:30 in the morning. If somebody needs me at 3:30 in the morning, you don't need me. You need an emergency room. You need the police. You need more than I can give. So cellular phones. Here's the timeline on cellular phones. Do you remember these? The brick, right? I remember when those first came out, I actually had a friend that her dad had one, and I'm like, this is so cool. He's got this brick that weighs 20 pounds that he can talk on. And then moving up through time, anybody have a Razr phone? This is when the phone started to become a little bit more like bling bling at the same time. And nowadays, of course, we've got, the smartphones, which the phones went from huge to small to now big again, right? Because now it's a computer again. It's a computer again. I know when I upgraded my iPhone, I went to the 6 Plus S, I think I'm at a 6. I don't even know what I'm at. But I got it bigger again, because it's like, okay, we got the glasses and we got this, I need to go back to bigger again. Then when I try and put it in my pocket, I'm like, it doesn't fit in my pocket, I need a smaller phone. It's like, I'm not happy with what I have. It's like, okay, just put in the chip. So I went back to roughly about, 1989, that anybody born 1989 and on forward has, this is what they know. And a funny story, a few years ago when my godson was about 4 or 5 years old, we spent a long weekend in Naples, And of course, summertime Miami, afternoon rain, so we're all in the room. He's running around the room. He goes between the beds and he picks up the phone, he puts it to his, then he throws the phone and screams, ah! And we're like, what's wrong with this kid? What happened? What is this? He had never heard a dial tone. And I was like, oh, I'm ancient. Once I got over that, it's the reality of he's never heard a dial tone. And this is the world that they're living in. You know, this is the world that they're living in. Then we look at the internet timeline, right? Hotmail back 1996, Yahoo. I wish AOL would have been there because AOL was my first experience with the internet. And, you know, I had my Tandy computer and then I had an IBM computer. You remember the sound of the modem? Beep, boom, beep. I heard that not too long ago. For some reason, our copier fax machine made that noise. All of us in the office kind of walked out in the hallway and we're like, what was that? That sounds familiar. And it was like, if somebody was on the phone at home, you couldn't be on the internet. If somebody called on the call waiting, it would knock off the internet. And boy, would it move slow, but we thought it moved fast. Nowadays, I know I catch myself. My mom has a Windows computer. That thing is super slow. It's a couple years old, and in comparison to the Mac, so I'm sitting at the computer like, really? This took 30 seconds. What's wrong? Don't you? I got. And it's like, relax. You know, we've all become very, very much used to that. Now, social media has pros and it has cons, but there's still so much benefit to the live and to the real socialization that we have to help our teens and our young adults to definitely balance this. Because I will tell you from my experience today with the teens and the young adults that we're seeing have such a difficult time verbally articulating what's going on with them and how to interact, how to have a conversation that flows, you know, beyond the texting. It helps, the benefits, it helps to build positive and constructive relationships. It helps to develop that intimacy that helps people feel connected. And if a person feels connected, they're able to be more empathic. So this cyberbullying and stuff that's going on, where's the empathy? It lacks. It lacks because when we communicate, 70% of our message is our facial expressions. 7% is the actual words. You know, it's like, how are you feeling? I'm fine. What do you believe, my words or my face and my tone? We got to learn how to pick all those cues up and be able to be like, oops, I think I've offended somebody. I think I've hurt somebody. We catch that in the face versus the messages. It helps each person to develop as an individual too, because we're trying on different communication styles, especially in the teen years. The teen years, kids are learning to have same gender friends. Then they're learning to have opposite sex friends. And then we got the boyfriends, the girlfriends. And each of those relationships and the way that those relationships flow is different. And how do we learn? We learn through practice and really through imitation. You know, kids are going to model their romantic relationships based on what they've seen on their parents first and foremost. Because they don't know, they've never had it before, so they're going to model it that way and then try on their own and see what works and how it navigates through that. It also enhances mental functioning through real thoughts. What's put out there on social media is best foot forward for everybody. You know, we've had people that are going through the process of recovery that are still very much going into social media and looking at their friends and look, but they can do this and they can do that and they went to that party and they did this and I'm not doing this. And it's not healthy because it just makes them more depressed. Studies are finding too that with the social media, girls tend to be more depressed if they have excess use than boys. More comparison. Look at how pretty she is. She's skinny. She's having fun. She's doing this. She's got the boyfriends. She's got all these friends. She's got all these likes. Girls are there. They're finding that girls are more sensitive to it than boys. And that's very interesting. Real life relationships, too, help to reduce stress and anxiety. Why? Because you have people that you're talking to about what it is and that they're comforting you. You know, and it's real time. It's real time. You also have the power of touch and a hug, which on social media and on technology, that's not there. It helps to boost self-esteem and reduce social anxiety. A lot of the teens and young adults we treat, a lot of them started using, or part of their using has become as a social lubricant. Because when they're out there talking to live people, it's so difficult. Because from a young age, if they've been hiding behind the screen, it's easier. There's less risk behind the screen when it comes to that. And they'll make friends with anybody. You know, anybody online reaches out, friend request. You know, it's very easy for them to accept. And we know you never know who you're accepting. There are people out there that, you know, they're not children, but they're putting up pictures as if they are a child and luring them in. And I've already seen this a couple times with some of the teenagers that we've worked with. And I'm very grateful that the parents somehow found out about it, intervened, to the point that one person was arrested because he was pursuing this 16-year-old girl. And it turned out he was a 50-something-year-old man. And she went along with it. You know, he told her that he was 17. I'm going to go pick you up at school. And I'm so very grateful. Mom got in front of that one because the police was at the school. The guy did show up, and she was ready to leave with him. Now, would she have left with him knowing that, or learning that he was somebody in his 50s? My belief is yes. I believe she would have. I don't believe she was one of those that would have been like, oh my God, you're 50, there's something terribly wrong about this. No, I think she would have gone. Because, and then clinically, what's going on with that individual that she's reaching out to strangers and would have potentially gone with him? And we don't know what would have happened. Human trafficking here in Miami is huge. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but, you know, it's terrifying. Terrifying what's going on with that. The true feelings of happiness come from being with people that we love. I think we all experience that and know what that is. And the support that we get from being with people, live people, is very different than what comes in other arenas. It's the sincerity, it's the connection that becomes very important. So why do some teens and young adults and people in general overuse social media? The fear of missing out, that's huge, right? The FOMO, right? It's huge. What if I'm not here, if I'm not present, if I'm not watching, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? I'll throw myself under the bus here. I go through phases with Facebook. There'll be times that I'll check Facebook for like 2 weeks every day, maybe a couple times a day, and then there'll be times that I'll go weeks without even looking at it. And right now I'm going through that phase of I'm not going into Facebook. It's just because I don't know, I just don't feel like it, so I'm not. But with the teens, it's what am I missing? And then the flip side of that is the fear of being ignored, right? We got the fit in, the belonging, they're developing, they're creating their social circles. I need people to see me. And it's a very self-centered time as well, too. So it's really about see me. And peer pressure is gargantuan in this world. As much as they say, because I remember growing up, I said it too, there's no peer pressure. Nobody makes me do anything. Mom, Dad, you're crazy. This is being videoed, so I'll say, Mom, Dad, in case you're watching, just kidding. You're not crazy. I got to give them some props now, right? It's a lot of pressure to conform, to be on there, to have the likes, to compete with that, to post, to be online. Snapchat now has the streaks, and they've had it for a while. And the streaks is if you go in every day and contact that person, you go winning, icons and prizes and, accolades. And so that's part of what develops the addiction to technology. It's about, I can't miss a day because I can't break my streak. And Snapchat, they created this because they were losing their popularity. So how do we spark this back up? Let's create this, and it has boomed again, their use of Snapchat. To the point that if kids are traveling, going out of town, and they can't sign in, they'll leave their username and password to other kids to sign in for them, because I don't want to lose my streaks. Look at how powerful that is. It's extremely powerful. Some people use social media because it's all about me. It's the constant selfies, posting the selfies of here I am at the golf club, here I am at school, here I am at home, I'm at Publix, I'm in the bathroom, I'm, right, guess where I'm at, right? And I remember when Facebook first came out that there was people that literally would post all of that. I'm grocery shopping. Congrats, I'm glad you're eating, and tracking all of this, and it's about that validation again. And the studies show that when people get the likes, it does kick that dopamine. And that's what brings people back too, right? I posted something, let me go in and see if I've gotten any likes. And it keeps them attached, again, perpetuating that cycle of that addiction to what it is that's going on. So it was interesting because there's presentations, there's books, there's literature, there's articles on how to boost your presence, how to have more people come in and like, how to have more people follow you, how to attract more. So in the fostering the addiction, like Netflix is a great example. The next episode plays automatically, and as I was reading that, I'm like, yeah, but I'm glad it does. I get to binge watch. But there it is. I get to binge watch. It's not one episode, I'm going to watch 9 of them. And fostering that, right? And it's great because you can fast forward, there's no commercials, you can pause it, you can do this, you can do that. You have the ability to do all of that. We talked about the streaks, the games. You get the free prize per day. I am an Angry Birds Candy Crush. That's my mindless entertainment. That's my half hour before, when I'm winding down, that's what I do because it's great mindless entertainment. In my head, though, I know with both of those games, you go in every day and I'll get a booster. But then if I don't go in every day, I start at the bottom again. And Candy Crush, once you reach, I think, 30 days straight or something, or 15 days straight, they give you 30 minutes versus only 5 lives. But if I break that streak, I'm back to, I don't get my 30 minutes. It's on my mind. And believe me when I tell you, I do stuff during the day and just stay home. But I think about it, and it has to be before midnight, by the way, because their watch works different than mine, because I consider today isn't over until I fall asleep, even if it's 3 in the morning. It's still today. But for them, it's midnight. So sometimes it's like, It's just an automatic thought. And no, I don't drop what I'm doing to go home to get my lives, but it's amazing to me how it changes all of our wiring and how easily it can do that. And there, the app is not what's necessarily addictive in some of these things. It's the power of not breaking the streaks in other people, not letting other people down with our streaks. So it's very intelligent what the apps are doing. But then on the other side of that, we have to be very aware of what it's doing to us and what it's creating in us, because they don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. And we got to hold with, especially as you're parenting your kids, having their best interest at heart. And I've had kids that have gotten really upset with their parents if their parents have taken away their phone or as a consequence, the media, and they've had to break the streaks. I mean, it's like literally like meltdown on the floor. It's like, get up, it's not that bad. You'll build your streaks back up. But it's like they can't cope with the fact that their streak was broken. The video games as well too. They got the level ups and the headsets and the talking and the team and the companionship, and I can't let my buddies down and I have to get on here. And they make the video games just hard enough that it keeps them engaged, but then we'll move them to the next level. So then it's like one more level. Okay, I'll go one more level. Some of these games have 300, 400 levels. World of Warcraft, on and on and on they go. And the danger in the video games is that it definitely is a withdrawal from the real world. Ray and I once did an intervention. We met with this family on a young 20-something year old addicted to video games to the point that he had pillows tied under his arms with strings because of the carpal tunnel to hold the controls, and would urinate on himself to not go to the bathroom to stop the game. That's to the extreme. And of course, needless to say, he hadn't left home in I don't know how long, not going to school, not working, not sleeping. Hygiene was extremely poor. Diet was extremely poor. Reality testing was very poor. He was living in a whole different world. And, you know, this was a difficult intervention to do, to remove him from that. And then when you look at the treatment side of that, right, it's like people that suffer from any kind of disordered eating. You have to eat to survive. So you have to teach the person how to eat. Technology. We need technology these days. You know, there's work, there's, you know, and teaching the person then how to balance. You know, all of these conditions are treatable. However, it becomes very tricky because you got to teach to moderate versus drugs and alcohol. You can live alcohol and drug-free the rest of your life without a problem. So it can be easier to just be zero versus having to find the balance. So the chemistry, when it comes to technology and when it comes to smartphones and things and the social, it lights up the same areas of the brain as opioids and marijuana. Same area. The reward pathways mediated by dopamine respond to screens in a very similar way to opiates. This is, you know, more of a process addiction, a behavioral addiction versus a substance addiction. But when it comes to the brain functioning, extremely similar in lighting up that reward system, releasing dopamine. When people go in and see that they have, you know, 300 likes, dopamine comes out. It's like, yes, I got it. Look at that. Look at how many people came in and liked it. And these are the study, you know, this was a study done at Stanford University Medical Center. And what are some possible consequences of having too much technology? Addiction to technology is developmental delays, cognitive, emotional, social, and language. Because they're not practicing these skills. They're hiding behind the screen. Something I've noticed in myself, and when I was in 5th grade, I won the spelling bee. I can't spell very well anymore. We have autocorrect. Not that that always changes things to what you want it to. I don't know if any of you have experienced that one, but I know some things have left my screen and I was like, ooh, that's not what I meant to say. And on my phone, I have it on the bottom. Please excuse typos on phone. I have it as a disclaimer on there. So those delays. Obesity. People are not moving, they're not exercising, or they're sitting at the screen and eating, so they're not being mindful or present to what they're eating, and overeating is something else that we're seeing. Sleep. The blue light actually counters the melatonin that's naturally secreted when we're trying to go to sleep. So we won't as sleepy, or potentially some people suffer from insomnia. They're on the screen, but that blue light is not helping any. So the recommendation is an hour before bed, cut out computer, tablets, phones, so that natural process of the melatonin can come in. The distraction, not being fully present to what's going on. Clearly it's affecting academic performance. Isolation from family, and depression and anxiety, because it's related to the true connects. We have the huge problem that's going on with the bullying. horrible, horrible, horrible. And here's just, this clip right here. This was posted, assuming that this is true, right? 11 minutes ago, you're ugly and fat, you have no friends, and no one will ever love you. Why do you even bother coming to school anymore, freak? And look at all the responses, how quickly people come in. And what do they say? Ha ha, wait, but this is so incredibly true. Yeah, what an effing loser. This is totally true. She's ugly and fat. We all know you have no friends. Ha, loser, hit the nail on the head with that one. Preach, thank goodness I don't have to see that blah, blah, blah anymore every day. How quickly people come in to jump on that bandwagon. According to that, yeah, because those are the ones that can post, because I don't see anybody else that's tagged. So, yeah, those are friends. Friends. And bullying has always been around. But there's a difference in the face-to-face bullying than to the cyber bullying, right? Cyberbullying is constant, 24/7, round the clock. There's no detaching from it. None at all. It can go viral. How many people can see it anywhere in the world? Anywhere. It can be anonymous. It's harder to empathize with the target, for sure. Because you're not seeing the face, you're not seeing the reactions of the person. That pulls in our heart to be like, oh my God, look at how this person is suffering, and I'm going to come up to bat for them. I'm going to get their back. I'm going to help them out. And no geographical limitations. While with the bullying, it's face-to-face. The person can actually get up, leave, and move where they're at and vacate themselves from the area. It's limited just to the group of people that's there versus 100, 200, 500, 1,000 people that can see it online. And you can see the facial and the body reactions. It's so important for kids and for us as humans to be able to see the reaction that a person is having, because that's going to be very telling to us how that person is experiencing what it is that's going on. Then we have the dangers with sexting. And sexting is something that's talked about a lot, which I appreciate. But kids still continue to do it because kids still continue to trust the person on the other end of that. And it broke my heart because not too long ago I met with a 13-year-old girl who a boy was like, come on, show me, take your picture, do this, do that. She sent it to him. He sent it to 10 friends who sent it to 8th grade, got to school the next day. Everybody knew. What did this young lady do? She starts cutting herself, self-mutilating because of the shame and the guilt from one poor decision. She knew, she had been talked to. The peer pressure is so strong that it's heartbreaking to see that this young lady acted out in this way because she was betrayed by somebody she trusted. And yes, I'm aware, 13-year-old judgment, still a huge betrayal from somebody that she trusted and somebody that manipulated her. He pushed, and she gave in. So reasons that this was a interview and a study that was done with the girls of why they do it. Some of them say they do it as a joke, which I have a hard time believing that's a response as a joke, because it's really not. I think that's a way of reducing the shame, like, it's no big deal. But it hurts on the inside that that happened. To be cool, to flirt, or pressure from a guy. And how common? 1 out of 17 report that they have sent a picture, and 1 of 6 reports that they have received a picture. So it is happening. We have the gaming. The gaming is a huge withdrawal from the world. Again, it's difficulty in coping with the real life, so it's coming away from what it is that's going on. And there's different symptoms, and the symptoms are also on the quick reference guide. And the emotional symptoms are very similar to substance use or any kind of addiction, which is feeling restless or irritable when unable to play. Kids that are refusing to live home, you take away the computer, and meltdowns and anxiety and fists through walls and such level of distress. Preoccupation with the online activity or thinking about the online session. They'll talk to you about the game, and I could do this, and when I get online, I'm going to connect with Buddy B here and on the headsets, and, the constant planning for it as well, too. Lying to friends or family about the amount of time that's spent playing. College students that we have done interventions on or have had to come back home that have been lying to their families about how much time they're spending on the video games and not going to class, and isolating from people in order to game. And then we have the physical, migraines, carpal tunnel, right? The example I gave you of the pillows because the pain is so much. So there's definitely digital safety rules that I think are very important to cover with kids. And that's, one of the rules that I think is very important is not to be rude or to bully anybody online. If I catch you writing these kinds of messages, we're done. You're going to lose the privilege of being able to do that. Respecting others. If you happen to get a picture, because we can't always control what's being sent to us. And that's okay. You're never going to get in trouble for something that's being sent to you. However, if you forward it to somebody else, it's inappropriate, we're going to have a problem there, right? And something I want to make you all aware of with child pornography. I've worked with folks that those pictures have been sent to them. They're not involved in it. But I had one person that actually got in trouble with the law because he did not delete the picture. And I learned that through this person. So if they happen to get something that's inappropriate, make sure that it's erased off. Don't forward and erase it off. Because there's a digital footprint for absolutely everything that happens online. Good rule is to let you as mom and dad know if they're being bullied online. That is something that if they don't tell you would be a secret versus private. Very important for you all to know if they are being bullied and need to intervene on their behalf if that is happening to them. We certainly, one suicide because of bullying is too many. So we need to jump in and help these kids if they experience this. Tell parents if we're receiving messages or pictures we are uncomfortable with. Another rule straight across the board. Stick up for others online. Every moment is a teaching moment, right? So if they're talking to you about that, teach them of how they can come in and help that individual. Do not give out personal information. Please, never personal information. And you can add other rules to that insofar as what's appropriate to post about where you are as a family pictures, pictures of your home. I would get very, very detailed as to what is appropriate for you and what is not appropriate for you insofar as your protection in social media. And do not friend anybody that you do not know. And that includes chatting, that includes messaging, that includes Facebook, Instagram, gaming, because these games now, you can get in these rooms and needing mom and dad's approval for that. And some of the rules and limits that you can impose, limits on the screen time. There's apps where you could actually have, a phone shut down at a certain time and then turn back on at another time. Helping them to self-regulate, especially if they're distracted already. Homework time, family time, dinner time, setting those limits. There's some families that also don't allow texting in the car unless it's, or using the phone in the car unless it's a long trip, but driving to school, to the grocery, to the doctor, using that as conversation time versus technology time. And the car, with these kids, that might be the only time that they'll talk. It could be much more difficult in other arenas. Letting them know that the screen time is a privilege. Even though they've grown up and lived with it, it's not a requirement. They will not die if they don't have screen time. So it is a privilege, and privileges are earned just like privacy is earned. And it goes with showing the level of responsibility to then be able to earn more time. As a parent, I think it's important to have access to the passwords. Yes. And that is going to be a very difficult challenge. And I think the best, because I've thought about that a lot. And this is a generation that was born into this. Like you're saying, we'll take the 3-4-year-olds right now, please. I mean, they'll grab it. They don't know what a code is, but they know that you do this with your finger and it opens it up and there it goes. It's about teaching them from an early age that using it in school is in school, and I'm hoping at the age of 3 and 4, we're pretty much ensured that they're using the app at the school for an educational purpose, right? And then when they get home, using and employing other things. It's about teaching the balance from a young age. And something that you said, Leslie, a bit ago when you and I were talking about not making a big deal out of like the car and the technology, right? Normalizing it and doing it in a way where at home, the parent draws the 2 yellow lines on the road, and there's a structure to it as to, okay, this is for school and the educational, and at home, having maybe a game, but with a limit of half hour, 1 hour, depending on the age, and then take it away, and then maybe handing a book, handing a coloring book, something else, and bringing in that balance to teach them a little bit of everything, because this is their norm. And we, as the immigrants into the technology, are going to have to adjust to the fact that is the norm, that's what we're living in, that's where we are, but having that balance taught from a young age. Yep.
To limit screen time is extremely difficult now because so many assignments are online and submitted online, even the books are online. So when she's ready to relax, she loves to do digital art. So she's got her iPad Pro and she's drawing, but she's still looking at a screen. And then she says, Mom, I haven't looked at Instagram all day long. It's like, I just want 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so for her to, just like you were saying about Candy Crush,
right?
That's your switch off time, right? So there's really small amounts of time that I can get her off of a screen.
Sure.
And it's like, we'll take the dog for a walk, or I need the trash taken out or something like that. It's small moments.
Small doses.
But the rest of the time, she's doing homework assignments and she's doing stuff that she has to do online.
Right. And it sounds like you have the trust in her that if she tells you she's doing homework assignments, she is.
She is, but she's getting very used to sitting in the corner of her bed where I can't see the screen. And so we have arguments about that as well. And so I'm like, nope, if you're doing homework, you're sitting at your desk.
Right. Which is that next one here is computer in the common area, because that's extremely valid. You're right. All the assignments, everything is online now. I mean, I was recently, I forget at which school, but it really doesn't even matter what school. All the kids were sitting in the cafeteria with their iPads because their iPads are their school. It's all their books and it's everything. And it's a matter of what you're saying is very true because everything is online. But having it in a common place where you can see what it is that's going on, because a lot of these kids too will be like, yeah, I'm doing homework. And they're doing other things.
And I did exactly what you said. I went onto T-Mobile, did the app, did the shutdown thing of both of the phones for the kids, tried to do that. That didn't work because one of them was, and then I did it with the Mac. I went in as an administrator. I set times, and then within a day or two, she needs the password because she has to submit.
She has to submit, yeah.
It's like a futile.
It is because the apps that are out there for parental controls, and these are on the handout there as well too, while they're good, they're not flawless. And there's nothing out there that's flawless as a parent that you can use to ensure any of these things. There's signs of problematic use. And that would be, a sense of euphoria when plugged in, neglecting friends and family beyond what a teen is normally going to neglect friends and families as they're growing up, right? This is going to be at another level. Skimping on sleep, dishonesty about usage, noticing withdrawal symptoms when they're not on it. Anxiety, anger, depression, give it back to me, not being able to handle, again, beyond the normal teen when you say no, when you put in a limit, and withdrawing from other activities. At that point, it's going to be indicative that this is becoming a bigger problem, and then it's really going to be mandating, you need to sit here in front of me where I can see over your shoulder, see the screen, see this, see that, and being very cognizant of the fact that they're still going to get away with stuff, because, if we remove the apps or give them back one of the old school phones that all you can do is dial, because they still exist. I see them. and losing the apps, that it's still gonna, they can get that anywhere. But you find it, you see it, there needs to be, a consequence for it. And also be very wary of double accounts. A lot of kids will have one Facebook account that I'm friends with mom and dad, and then another Facebook or Instagram that, it's only my friends that have access to, right? So being very cognizant of that. And there's some physical signs that we crossed into, and then, here at the end of the day, this is what we're going to. I pronounce you man and wife. You may now update your Facebook status. Congratulations. And they're both holding their phones. So remember the teenage brain? Where's the part I love here? Here's peer pressure resistance, ability to be seen in public with parents, and memory for chores and homework. Right. So we got to be their frontal lobe, right? Set up the rules, set up the expectations, and keep fighting this fight day by day. And on behalf of Family Recovery Specialists, I thank you all for being here this morning. A pleasure and an honor. No, thank you. We got to keep them safe. And by the way, I'm going to send you off Facebook friend requests, and if you accept, I know we're really friends.